Welcome back to the Chow Time Pod. It's your host, Red. I got a video today from Duke Jackson. I love how he says it. So I haven't done a video for him in a while, and he did one on Pearl and Ethan, and just how some of the arguments that Pearl makes really stems from just statistics. It's only statistics, and she doesn't use the nuance to help justify some of the things that people do have issues with, especially women. I'm not saying that everything that women want to argue with, all the little nuances do matter that much, but when it comes to certain things, you do have to think about it. So let's get to that. It's chow time.
Actually, I think we should ban divorce too. Yeah, I think that should be banned. Yes.
Okay, well, that's a little bit silly. You have to acknowledge that.
I agree. I don't really know Ethan that much, but I know he says some pretty silly things sometimes, but I agree with him with this. Like, to fully ban divorce is pretty silly. Why? Because in the West, the only reason we are having more issues with divorce now is because Reagan made it so there's a no-fault divorce, where people, women and men, can just leave relationships and leave marriages without any particular reason, just because they're unhappy or whatever it is. That's the problem. If we just made it so if you want to get a divorce, you have to prove adultery, prove abuse, or have these things going on, then it makes more sense for these people to get divorced for these particular reasons. So I totally disagree with just straight up a flat ban on divorce.
No. And the majority of divorces nowadays, it's just, when the girl just feels like leaving.
That's not true.
So, and
I don't actually know if this is the majority of it, because again, in the red pill space, in the content space, we see a lot of these women, and a lot of these women, out themselves for leaving it for that particular reason. But that's also social media. These people do not represent most demographics of women, right? Again, we always talk about, there's no good women, because we see so many of these women, on these podcasts and on TikTok complaining about, I'm unhappy. But there's a good chunk of people that do get abused. There's a good chunk of people that get cheated on. And I don't agree, if you're serial cheating, it's a reason for divorce. Abuse is a reason for divorce. Financial abuse is a reason for divorce. You just can't say this is happening globally or all around. Just people just unhappy and they want to leave. I don't really truly think that is, but it is a good sized demographic. But if you just made it so that people can't leave because of that, then it fixes the issue. You don't actually have to put a whole ban on divorce.
And well,
it's just not true.
I've talked to hundreds of women.
That's
on
not. That's just
so,
that doesn't prove anything.
What's good, everybody? It's your boy, Duke Jackson, back at it again with another episode of Celebrity Jump. Team Mario Brothers music. So, guys, as it appears, Just Pearly Things is back out here on the scene, making content that wants to make me rich. Can I get a ching sound effect? And hey, I'm all for it.
Make that money,
O'Shea.
Make that money.
I need a new hairline pretty soon. And I'm creeping up on age 43. So whatever I can get help with, I'm going to do it. Rewind, Demon. Yeah, so Just Pearly Things, is on H3 Podcast. H3 Podcast is it's a huge platform. These guys kind of have a problem with the red pill from what I know. They even have a little back and forth going on with Abba and Preach. I'm not very familiar with their show, although I do know there is a guy that's pretty popular by the name of Ethan, and he's the one that's going to be interviewing her. And for all intents and purposes, I want to kind of basically play an excerpt that's going to deal with divorce and alimony and things like that. Now, I'm just going to be honest. I'm a person that understands that men are suffering in divorce and that it's unfair to men. I would share an opinion very similar to Just Pearly Things on that, just like most people in the manosphere would stand on that.
Yeah,
right?
I do
But
agree.
now the extremes that she discusses and the anecdotal evidence she's going to present.
Yeah, she does speak on extremes, like, oh, we should just make women not vote anymore, and just things like that. And it's just like, do you hear yourself when you say things like that? Like, those things cannot be put back in the box. And you saying that, it sounds very misogynistic. Just, oh, women shouldn't vote anymore. It's just like, you know,
present here. Like, I've talked to these 200 people or these 300 people, and she's going to be stating a lot of facts, trying to, catch years or quote years, but she's completely getting demolished by this guy. And what he's saying is making more sense than what she's saying completely, which is why they're bringing her onto the platform, because she's just not that bright. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to play this excerpt, guys. It is cringe, but let's go ahead and come back.
So how do you push a policy that promotes family? Like, in what way can you force a family to stay together or encourage it in a sense?
Well, I think you first have to get rid of incentives that incentivize like women to leave families. So, for example, child support, alimony. I'm not really a fan of those.
Child support. So if there's a divorce, let's say
actually, I think we should ban divorce too. Yeah, I think that should be banned. Yes.
Okay, well, that's a little bit silly. You have to acknowledge that, right?
No.
So banning divorce means that when you decide to get married, you are not allowed by the government to leave your significant other in any situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just think that if you want to leave, you just shouldn't get married. So that's just my opinion.
Right, but like in the real world, that kind of
simplistic.
And there's like exceptions to this, but I would just say in general, for most cases, we could talk about exceptions, but like the rule.
Well, the
divorce,
exceptions are the important part, because I've heard you say that a lot when you're talking about things. You say, oh, you want to talk about exceptions, but the exceptions is the important part, because those are the people that are going to be affected. I mean, exceptions are going to be a large part of divorces, as you say. I mean, you're talking about 25% maybe or more, because if you're saying you're not allowed to get divorced, so we're talking about like, what if the relationship is physically abusive?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if it's physically, this is the problem though.
She goes. This is like the MT whatever argument. Like, admit it. The abuse is bad. Why are you gonna go around about and like quote other statistics and saying that this doesn't happen that often, or abuse is double-sided, or whatever it is? Abuse is bad. Even if it's double-sided abuse, they should get divorced. Period.
All right. If it's one-sided physically abusive, okay, fine, divorce. We can allow divorce for those exceptions. But
okay.
Like, I've even talked to people that work at like abuse centers, and they say that the majority of abuse is mutual. So it's not just one side's hitting the other. It's like mutual. So
surely that's not every time.
I think. Yeah, I know.
But it's not healthier either.
No, it's not.
I just think that the goal should be to keep families together, and that the goal should be to work through it.
I think most people agree with that, right? Because I think we all can look at the stats and say family is important, right? Family is important. Nuclear families is important to like the health of children growing up in general. I think we can all say that. But when you say something like divorce should be illegal,
yeah,
we got to kind of suss that out, because that's a pretty extreme claim. For example, in 2014, family violence was the cause of 25% of divorces. So I don't think it's fair to characterize that as some kind of like super fringe example of why people get divorced.
Well, but you also have to look if there's incentive structures in place where there's a lot of false accusations in family court. And a lot of people don't know this, that family court is actually it's not based off of evidence. It's based off a balance of probabilities. And there are incentive programs that you get, like in the UK, you get a free lawyer if you accuse your husband of abuse, and it's less than 10% of cases are actually like followed through with the police.
Sorry, I don't want to move on quite yet. I want to stick on the topic of not allowing people to divorce. So you're saying that you do want to allow people to divorce. Then you don't really believe that.
Yeah.
No.
She really said, like, oh, it should be okay for abuse cases one-sided, but yet I would want to ban it. Like, no, just remove no-fault divorce. That fixes that. That literally fixes that. You don't even have to go to the extreme of banning divorce. Just remove no-fault divorces in most of the states.
I would say ban divorce.
Okay, because you just said you would allow an exception in the case of abuse.
I said one-sided abuse exception, sure.
Okay, so how do you prove the one? So then you don't believe in forced divorce, or ban divorce.
Fine. Yeah. Ban divorce except for one-sided abuse.
Okay,
sure.
Except for one-sided abuse. And is there going to be a system to kind of how do you prove that the woman or man?
Well,
was on the,
I think you have to press charges in criminal court, not family court.
So only if your significant other is tried criminal.
See, this part is stupid too. Some significant others don't want their significant other to go to jail, but doesn't mean they don't want to, like, they want to be with them anymore. Like, that's a problem, like, with this argument. You know, some people still love the man and some people still love the woman, even though they're getting abused, but they rather just not deal with it. They don't want to take them to jail. They don't want to put them in the jail because they might have kids together. Like, doing that is actually more detrimental to the family itself instead of just, you know, separating and then just doing your thing. You know, like, I do agree somewhat. If abusers are bad abusers, they might go abuse other people. That one I do agree with. But if it gets to that point where you have to, then do it. But if it's only these people that are going through criminal court to be able to do divorce, that's the problem. That makes it even harder for these people to want to do that because they don't, like Rihanna, they didn't want to press charges on Chris Brown and things like that. You know, it's just not everybody wants to send their significant other to jail just because of, you know, abuse or whatever it is, because it's still their family. It's still the father of their kid or the mother of their child.
Criminally, are you allowed to leave the relationship?
Yes.
Tried and found guilty criminally.
Yes. Otherwise, you know, just stick out of, you know, which is fine if you don't, you know, want to be with someone.
She just straight up says, just stick it out. If you're not willing to press charges on them, just stick it out, guys.
Forever. But I just say stay out of marriage. You know, because when you take marriage is supposed.
See, this is part even stupider. Like, now you're telling people to just stay out of marriage if these things like might happen. You're making it so people don't want to get married because these things might happen. At least, you know, if they do get married and something does happen, they get an out, be able to, like, oh shit, I did make a mistake. People make mistakes all the time. You know, like, as much as we tell men to be careful out there, men still make mistakes. You know, like, women still make mistakes. These are like innate in humans to make mistakes. We're not perfect creatures. So again, to make it so if you're not gonna fucking, you know, live forever together, don't get married. And if you're gonna, you know, if you're abused and stuff, you know, you can't get divorced. That puts people in a very tough bind to even want to get married in the first place. Right. So now you're trying to, like, you're kind of like destroying the nuclear family even further because less and less people want to deal with these things.
Supposed to be, you know, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, and for richer or for poorer. It's not supposed to be, you know, when I feel like leaving. And the majority of divorces nowadays, it's just, you know, when the girl just feels like leaving.
That's not true.
So and well, you know,
it's just not true.
I've talked to hundreds of women.
That's
on
not.
My show.
That's just.
So,
I
agree. Like, again, she talks to hundreds of women, but these are all the women with the same, you know, archetype, same, you know, thing that they all feel that way. You know, they all do similar things, but these aren't the demographic of all women out there. There's a lot of decent women out there. I meet them. You know, they're not the best women, but they're decent. They're not to the level of the girls that are on these podcasts.
That doesn't prove anything.
And even if you look at when no fault divorce was initiated in the 1970, I think it was initiated. I mean, one of the number one reasons was financial differences and irreconcilable.
Sorry, I can't talk.
So, but But yeah, I just think like, for the people that don't believe in real marriage, because what is marriage if you can get divorced over damn near anything? It's not marriage anymore. It's something else.
So I'm gonna deal with the whole divorce thing. Women should never get divorced. Okay? Women should never get divorced. That was her main thing that she was saying. It's no fault divorce and all of this. Now, she's saying that, okay, then you got her to be like, well, what about people who are being abused in relationships? Well, men are also abused in relationships, something like that, right? Mm-hmm. Then it came to, this whole position about as far as men being in relationships and, if the woman is abused, then that man she should be forced to stay married to this man unless he is criminally prosecuted. Now, I'm sorry, but that sounds silly, right?
Right.
What if he is not found guilty and he can still, abuse the woman or beat on the woman? Now, I do understand that there is false accusations against men. I get that. But she was so to the extreme in which she couldn't defend her positions. Yeah. And this is why the guy was talking about, hey, listen, that sounds very silly. And you're not talking in practicality. And that was a problem with her argument. And again, it was just a whole, you can see all the time she was trying to justify it by, I know this person, I've talked to this person, and then I've heard this and I've heard that. And pretty much it was a whole bunch of fact stating. And you really can understand that she wasn't able to critically assess what he was talking about, nor was she able to respond. And that is the red pill conditioning that she learned just to grift and make money. And there is no gray area. Let me just tell you this in life. And this is what I'll learn too. I'm a pretty conservative guy, but God damn it, there is a lot of gray area in life.
There is.
It's just not white and black. There is a lot of gray. And we live in a perpetual state of living in the gray and having to adjust and having to compromise and having to say, well, it's this and that, but you know what? This is the decision we want to compromise on, and this is what needs to be mitigated in X, Y, and Z. And Just Pearly Things is talking like that because she's 26 and you don't have any real life experience. You've never been married. You don't know what it's like, and you're just talking in extremes to guys who've never also been married or never had relationships or never had serious things. So you can't really qualify what you're talking about. And again, this is another way to grift. And I noticed that, like, in the red pill, as I've kind of stepped back from this community, there's so many people that are just charismatic and they understand the business of YouTube and they understand, how to make money. They understand how to make good videos. But the advice that, I see people giving in the red pill, man, the last 3 to 4 years, once it became saturated, is this guy saying things that don't make any sense. No. It would be different if you're going to talk about, well, I agree with that. I don't agree with that opinion.
This is part of a big reason why I got into the space and started making content, because I felt everything was so to the extreme. Feminists are so this way, red pill and a lot of red pill creators, not saying red pill itself, sorry, but the red pill creators were so much this way. And it's just like, you do realize you have to meet in between somewhere. And there is nuances. The people in red pill and red pill spaces never really want to talk about the nuances, but the nuances do matter. They do matter. Not saying it for every case it matters. Yes, in generality, we should be speaking in generality because it affects more people, but doesn't mean we should not speak about the nuances. Just like the whole MLD thing, and like, if women are abused, should they stay in their relationship? And you should just, endure, no, that's not the case, because men get abused too. Should they just endure? That's what you're telling people to do. No, I just say, I agree, just remove no fault divorce, and then just make it so it's, you have to have decent reason for divorcing. That's it.
Opinion, because I don't agree with it. But when you're just talking about something that you haven't experienced, that is completely unacceptable. But guys, what do you think? It's your boy, O'Shea Duke Jackson, back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity Junk.
Yeah. Again, I don't really have anything against most of the creators out there. Pearl is probably one person I do have something like against and what, because she's a woman that kind of just grifts in this space, where at least like Fresh and Fit, they do help men out and they relive this life. They're men, you know. I can agree with some of their points and some of the things that they do. I hardly can agree with Pearl. I really can't. Like, just she's always speaking up to the extremes. The way she speaks to other people, telling them what to do. She doesn't live that life herself. You know, at least for me, I tell you guys go to the gym. I think you guys see that I go to the gym. I don't eat the best, but I try my best to do better with eating. You know, I groom myself. I even go over topics about grooming and things like that too. And I tell you, like, oh, I go dance classes. I do these things. You know, I go with my subs to go do these things. And like, I do try my best. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but to live the life that I, preach to you guys to try to do and better yourself and go and save money and do all these things. All right. So please like and subscribe down below. I'd really appreciate it. And I'll catch you guys next time. It's Chow Time.